We are from Indiana University e-learning design and services. You should see our slides on the screen. Hopefully you do. We are here to talk to you about prompt engineering, but we're going to take kind of a little bit of a different take on prompt engineering today. In particular, what we want to do is we want to present you a take on it that approaches it from an instructional design perspective. In particular, what we want to do is we want to show you how everything that you know about instructional design, or really what you know as an educator or educational professional, prepares you to be a great prompt engineer. So here, I think if you go online and search for how to be an effective prompt engineer, you're going to find a lot of information, a lot of strategies, and really much of them, I think, there are more than one way to do anything, right? But when we started thinking about good strategies for prompt engineering, we started to come back to a lot of principles that made us think, well, a lot of these are really good principles for instructional design, are good principles for even education in general or teaching in general. So we started to organize them around principles of instructional design, principles of teaching, in particular, 4 principles that we want to talk about today. So one is specificity. So how can you be specific in the prompts that you develop? Context, providing more context for what you want to get out of a AI engine, providing examples, and ultimately iterative interaction. Building, recognizing that working with an AI engine, an AI tool, is an iterative experience. So with that, I'm going to throw it. I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then start down discussing each of these 4 principles.
Hi everyone, my name is Dalton Gibson. I am a lead online instructional designer with e-learning design and services, and this is a personal passion of mine, and I'm very excited to share everything that we have today with you all. So thank you.
And we cannot hear you, unfortunately. So we'll go ahead and move to specificity.
It was during my teaching days that I learned a very valuable lesson, one that I still bring to my role as an instructional designer, that sometimes students just need more details and guidance. These details matter. These details communicated my expectations and clarified points I wrongly assumed were obvious. Similarly, to generate the type of responses you envision, AI needs more information than you would expect. Remember, when it comes to AI, you are the expert and it needs plenty of your guidance. Therefore, consider incorporating specificity into your prompt writing. By specificity, I'm referring to the practice of crafting detailed and precise prompts. These prompts should clearly communicate your desired output. Through careful, intentional wording and structure, you can avoid ambiguity. Whereas students may sometimes benefit from ambiguity, remember, AI does not. Make the implicit explicit. This is crucially important because, as far as I know, these models aren't able to read our minds yet. They require specificity to fully understand the nature of our requests. By understanding our requests, the models are more likely to produce relevant and accurate responses useful for your needs. Keep in mind, these models use a massive corpus of web pages, books, newspapers, and now user feedback on which to train. Of course, we know that not all sources are factual or objective. The more detailed information you are able to provide, the more likely it is the sources the models pull from are relevant for your specific goals. For example, if you want to steer the model in a more academic direction, then we would want to look for, let's say, more academic references or examples within our prompts, rather than, let's say, a random quote or response from 2007. To effectively implement this, first, identify your task's key objectives. What is it that you truly want and expect out of the model? Next, what level of detail or additional information is needed for your desired output? Again, it might be more than you expect. With this in mind, ensure that your prompts contain clear, concise language. And this is also truly the time to show off your vocabulary prowess and use those technical terms or industry field specific jargon. Importantly, avoid generalities to narrow the scope of your input. Briefly, I want to showcase an example of specificity in practice. In this example, I wanted the models to produce an activity I could use in a second language learning course. The main objective here is for students to recognize and practice appropriate language in a specific context. In 3 iterations of the same prompt, I was able to take this more basic first prompt to produce an activity that, with some minor tweaking, was far more aligned to my goals than the first. Let me break it down. My first request is rather basic and broad in scope. Importantly, note how ambiguous it is, both in terms of activity type and this sort of ambiguous phrase, how to ask for things. The generated results here were really different to what I envisioned and ultimately ended up being unusable for my purposes. In the second iteration, I included far more information and details that are considered important to include or when brainstorming on how to develop materials for a language course. In this third iteration, I provided more clarification and refined some points, such as, for example, specifying my precise course modality. Lastly, in this final prompt, you'll see that I use more technical terms to, again, hopefully steer the models in a more instructional or appropriate direction. This prompt ultimately produced output that was a lot more accurate to the activity I originally envisioned, and again, was aligned to my instructional goals. With this in mind, I hope that it's been useful to see an example of specificity in practice and how with just adding a bit more detail to your prompts, you can enhance your existing prompt writing skills. Let's turn to Dalton.
Thank you, Alejandra/Adam/Alejandra as Adam, or vice versa. So, imagine your boss drops a massive project on your desk. I need this done by tomorrow. No time to chat, super urgent, and I have to run to another meeting. Sorry. That's it. No details, no background, nothing. It's like being asked to bake a cake without a recipe. Now, in the same way that a bit of context could save you from baking a salt cake instead of a sweet one, context can significantly enhance AI outputs. Context ensures that AI understands not just the what, but the why behind a request, leading to outputs that are more relevant, more tailored, and far more useful. I lost my slide. Spoiler alerts. Okay. Context ensures, where was I? Context ensures the AI understands not just the what, but the why behind a request, leading to outputs that are tailored, relevant, and far more useful. It's like giving a map to someone who's lost rather than just saying, go that way. So how do we implement it? Know your audience. Are you talking to beginners or experts? Tailor the complexity of your prompt accordingly. Define your purpose. What do you want the AI to achieve with this content? Be clear about your objectives. Set the scene. Provide background information, relevant data, and other specifics. The more you give, the better the output will align with your expectations. Anything else? What would you yourself need to know in order to complete the task? Are there any other details you could give? Would a total stranger know what to do if they were given your prompt? When working with generative AI, context can be the difference between success and failure, though I might add it can help quite a bit when working with other humans too. Let's consider these two on-screen scenarios where we ask AI for assistance with an assignment template and with some hyperlinks. Without the application of our principles, the prompts are vague, leading to outputs that might be somewhat correct, but not quite there. The output is less than ideal, but so is the input. By refining the context and using specificity, clarifying that the hyperlink should be descriptive and accessible, the template should adhere to Canvas code formatting, the AI's output becomes exponentially more valuable, as the screenshots on the slide show. The more information that I was able to provide, the better aligned that output was. Now, who here has heard of the PB&J exercise? Basically, for those unfamiliar, students write instructions for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the instructor follows them, quite literally, comically exposing any missing steps or vague directions. Just like poor human prompting can result in all sorts of crazily made PB&Js, when we fail to provide adequate context and guidance when working with Gen AI models, it can lead to misaligned outputs. Just like teaching research skills, you don't say, go find information. You guide students on how to find and evaluate sources. You outline criteria for success. You provide examples, and you scaffold the experience. Effective AI prompting requires clear objectives, proper context, and well-structured steps. The same recipe for effective teaching, effective training, and effective instructional design. In this next example, I'd like to show you a different way that context could be applied to enhance AI outputs, this time student-facing. So in collaboration with some of my faculty clients, I had the opportunity to really innovate with two instructors who were willing to experiment with Gen AI in an effort to level up both of their courses. We started with 2 assignments, 1 per class. In this first assignment, students were tasked with reviewing made-up resumes to identify the best candidate to hire for a hypothetical job. In the second assignment, students engaged with a case study and drafted legal briefs that they would hypothetically give to an attorney who was preparing to argue that case. By carefully crafting and harnessing context, specificity, and adding necessary information into prompts, we transform these asynchronous assignments into truly immersive and interactive experiences. For the interview assignment, students interacted with AI-generated candidates, asking questions, evaluating responses. The AI models were prompted in such a way that they never broke character and even occasionally made realistic common interview mistakes, offering the students an authentic glimpse into the hiring process. Similarly, the case study analysis became an AI-infused mock trial, where students were active participants, arguing their case while Gen AI took on the role of the judge and the opposing attorney, citing relevant legal case facts and encouraging them to challenge or expand upon their ideas. This is the power of embracing and not resisting this tool. And, if I do say so myself, a wonderful example of this sort of innovative collaboration that can happen between educators and instructional designers.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dalton. So, despite our best efforts to explain something via writing or perhaps a casual conversation, it can be difficult to truly convey what we envision. Sometimes students just needed a bit of a model in my classroom to fully understand what I was seeking from them. And this is also a tip I always share with the instructors I work with now. By adding examples to your prompts, I mean the incorporation of guides or models that will allow AI to grasp your desired output. Again, this is in addition to creating very detailed and contextually specific prompts. This is the perfect time to use the screenshots you've saved, or perhaps those pieces of writing that you have written before or text you want the AI to emulate. The key here is that anything can be used as a sample. This is important because by giving examples, we are removing yet another barrier between us and AI. It doesn't necessarily have to guess at what we want because we can provide a direct illustration for it to mirror and how to do so. By demonstrating the desired outcome with the addition of examples, you can significantly enhance the relevance, precision, hopefully accuracy, and overall value, of your content. To effectively implement this, your prompts include clear and relevant instances that you want the AI to mirror. It's key here to select those examples that are aligned to your specific goals, and ensure that you are telling the AI how you want it to use those models. Again, the point here is that the AI model won't have to do as much guessing because we're telling it exactly how we want to use these examples. Some examples in an instructional setting can include such as what I have here on the screen. But please note, the examples that you provide are going to depend specifically on your goals and your context. In an instructional setting, however, the addition of role plays, simulations, previous essays that you have written, or perhaps rubrics you've included, or even the addition of equations or programming code would be excellent things to add. Very briefly, I'd like to show you an example in practice. In this specific example, I've asked AI to create a role play or mock dialogue scenario for my students. On the left, you'll see that I wrote a carefully worded prompt that details my expectations. On the right, you'll see that I included a guide. This is a mock dialogue I created and that I wanted the AI to closely recreate while it was giving me these role play scenarios. Importantly, you'll also notice here that I did not assume that the AI knew what I wanted it to do once I presented this model. In fact, I very clearly told it what I wanted it to do. For example, I specified that I wanted these scenarios to be formatted in a very similar way to my guide, and that I even wanted my student responses to be left blank. This was to ensure students could practice their specific turns. And what was generated actually turned out to be a lot closer to something I've already used in the classroom before, that I know is helpful, and that with some minor tweaking would be something that I could certainly present to students. Again, the key here is to tell the AI what to do with the models we've provided, and of course, provide these useful examples. On that note, let me move on to Dalton as he explains the final principle in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam and Alejandra again. Who here has heard of a rough draft? If I could see your hands, I would expect to see every hand raised. Well, just like you wouldn't expect to nail a presentation on your initial attempt, you shouldn't expect AI to deliver perfect outputs on the first try, especially with minimal details. Iterative interaction refers to the ongoing dialogue between you and the AI, where each exchange sharpens the focus and improves the quality of the output. It's like sculpting from marble. Your first chisel doesn't reveal David. You have to carve and refine. The synergy between human insight and AI's processing power is showcased in this iterative journey. It's not a narrative of replacement, but one of augmentation. AI doesn't replace our role as instructional designers. Instead, it enhances our toolkit, allowing us to construct more intricate, more compelling, and more effective learning experiences. Let's take a look at how this process fits into the larger puzzle that we've been constructing this morning. Here, we'll quickly work through a sample scenario together. In iteration 1, the AI is given the simple open-ended task of creating learning objectives, period. The resulting output is perhaps somewhat useful as a starting point, but not as effective as an endpoint, and it's not really utilizing the tool to its full potential. Now, let's see how even small strides towards applying the principles that we've been discussing today can enhance that output. In the second iteration, you can directly identify elements of specificity, context, but no examples, and we're still being somewhat vague and untargeted. What if we really took these principles and did one more round of iterative interaction, this time trying to ensure that we comprehensively covered all of our bases? Iteration 3 here shows a significant leap towards precision and a much better starting point for us as instructional designers to further refine and chisel. Here the prompt includes quality matters alignment, student-centric language, and first-person action statements. The feedback loop has narrowed, and the AI's response is now a detailed set of learning objectives aligned to my specified request. Now I can really get to work. Wait, what do I mean by that? The AI's output should never be considered an infallible piece of technological marvel. It almost always requires further human editing, and that's not a bad thing. It's a tool in our arsenal, not the master craftsman. The real magic happens when we, as instructional designers, engage with this tool, applying our critical thinking, our deep understanding of pedagogy, and our own unique human insights. We're not just operators of some sophisticated algorithm. We're artists, sculptors of knowledge who use every tool available to shape new learning experiences that are not only informative, but truly transformative. That's why I fell in love with this profession, and that's why I'm still so passionate about what I do every single day. Now, let's recap and review what we've learned by zooming out and taking a holistic view at our now complete puzzle. We started by planting seeds with our initial prompt, and then tended to the garden with the tools of context and specificity, pruning and shaping using examples until the output aligned finally with our vision. This process mirrors the iterative nature of creating new educational experiences, where we assess student understanding, collect and provide feedback, and then adjust our own instruction accordingly. Iterate, reflect, level up. It's a testament to our commitment not to perfection, but to continuous improvement. This is the future of instructional design, a future where we, as educators and designers, leverage the best of both worlds to create content that meets the needs of our modern learners. Gen AI may assist us in laying down the foundational bricks, but it's our human touch that sculpts and refines these materials into true masterpieces. This technology isn't going away, but neither are we. As instructional designers and educators in this ever-changing world, we must innovate and adapt. So, I ask you all, what will you do when empowered with generative AI?
Thank you so much, Dalton, and thank you, Alejandra. And again, sorry to all of the participants for any technical difficulties that we had.